Hello everyone. This video is going to be analyzing the economic effects of Brexit.
Okay, so full disclosure, I'll be explaining economic concepts linked to Brexit, but I'm biased and in favor of leaving the EU. So I'm going to try my best to be objective and explain the economic effects of leaving the EU. But I do think the economics favors remaining in the EU, and I prefer Brexit for or reasons of independence and sovereignty, so I don't think this will be a problem.
Alright, now for the background of Brexit. So Britain joined the EEC, the European Economic Community, in 1973, which was a trading bloc. The EU is a trading bloc that was created in 1992 and incorporated the EEC and the ECSC, the European Community, and the European Coal and Steel Community over time. We have 60 trade deals due to the EU, so the EU is very important. And since then, there has been many debates. It's about the EU, such as immigration and trade and globalization. And due to the threat from Nigel Farage and the UKIP party, David Cameron put a referendum in 2016 on whether we should remain or leave the EU. 52% of the country voted leave, as many of you know, if not all of you. Okay, so before we go to the mechanics of leaving the EU, we need to go through some basic definitions. All right, now economic growth is an increase in the availability of goods and services. Balance of payments is a record of transactions between one country and the rest of the world. It's basically a record of the exports and imports, which I'll talk about next. Exports are goods and services that are produced by one country and sold to consumers in another country. And imports are goods and services that are bought by consumers in one country from another country who produced them. So what I mean by this, say that if the US makes cars and they sell them to the UK, the US cars in the case of the US context is exports. But to the UK, those US cars are imports since they are coming from another country. Now, a trading bloc is a group of nations that agree to lower trade barriers such as tariffs and regulation, which the EU is. Now, why is there a significant debate around Brexit? There are multiple reasons, such as cultural or our standing in the global community, but the main reason is that there is a potential recession. When the trade agreements between the EU and Britain are negotiated, it will cause uncertainty. Now, this is bad since it will negatively affect the economy. So, domestic and foreign investors would withdraw investment temporarily until the trade rules are negotiated. This will mean lower investment, which means less jobs are created, lower incomes, leading to a negative multiplier effect and lower economic growth. This uncertainty also causes a fall in business confidence and consumer confidence. So there will also be further less investment, as well as less spending, which will further decrease economic growth. And not only that, the rise in tariffs from the EU will increase the cost of production overall for many firms, and this will make many foreign firms like Honda most likely leave the UK. Now, before we move on, I have to state that this video won't be able to cover all the nuances and economics behind Brexit, but I will cover the main ones. Now, according to Statista in 2018, the EU made up 45.6% of our imports and 53% of our exports. So the EU is very significant on this part of the economy. Now, well, after we negotiate a trade deal, the EU will impose a common external tariff on British exports. But also, if we don't even negotiate a trade deal, then the World Trade Organization will force the UK to put a tariff on the EU. Now, if the EU once the EU slaps common external tariffs on British exports, this will increase the price of UK exports since tariffs are taxes on imports and exports. So this will mean less UK exports are even bought in the first place. So there will be lower domestic business profits, and lower wages for UK workers, which will mean less consumption, decreasing AD and leading to a negative multiplier effect. Now, once the British tariffs set by the World Trade Organization are put on British imports, in this case the EU exports, this will increase the price of UK imports, which means less imports and lower. Um, this would mean also lower business profits for the EU and lower wages for workers, as well as lower consumption and negative multiplier effect in the EU. So we could kind of leverage that against them. But this is also hurts us because the imports include food and medicine, and so the tariff raises prices of necessities for consumers as well as increase the cost for the NHS. This is one of the reasons why people are saying that people are going to die due to Brexit. And other imports are technology and raw materials. So the tariffs pretty much increase the cost of production for British firms, and so it will make them less competitive. But not only that, but it will increase cost push inflation, which I'll go over that term in another. Now, before we continue on to Brexit, I want to use this as an excuse to explain protectionism. Now, one reason that Brexiteers voted leave is because the EU is a protectionist state outside of Europe's own free trade area, which limits the continent's growth and unfairly penalizes those that they target, and that the UK should seek free trade deals with other nations. Now, protectionism is often used to protect smaller domestic firms from larger foreign companies, to raise government revenue through tariffs, and to decrease the trade deficit. But domestic output will fall since these smaller firms are less competitive due to help from the government, such as subsidies and tariffs, and prices for domestic consumers will rise due to the tariffs on imports. And this is also more of a problem because the EU have been using this protectionism against poor African farmers by using tariffs on their imports, which increases the prices of what the African farmers sell, which decreases their revenue at just so domestic farmers are more likely to win in this scenario. I'll explain the protectionist graph another time. Now, leaving the EU will mean a stop to free movement, which decreases EU immigration into Britain. Now, this is a very big issue in my country, and leave harnessed this issue due to cultural reasons, while Remain harnessed this issue due to economic reasons. Now, a fall in immigration from Eastern Europe will decrease the number of cheap labor for businesses, which will increase production costs for businesses. So that means that UK businesses will be less competitive and have less profits. But Brexiteers would counter this by saying that less immigration would decrease the supply of labor, allowing for domestic workers to bargain for higher wages. Also, less immigrant labor would mean that there's more jobs vacant and available for domestic workers. And according to The Guardian, and this appears to be evident as UK wages have risen for the first time in a decade despite Brexit. You can read that link in the description. All other links will be in the description as well. Now, what annoys me most about this economic debate, as well as other economic debates, is that one side, as well as the other side, keeps on saying that their particular argument will eliminate any negative of the other argument, rather than saying that will partially offset the negatives of the other argument. Now, what I mean by partial offsetting effects is that an action or an unintended economic effect of a scenario may partially decrease the disadvantages, but not completely. So this would actually add a lot more nuance into the debate. Now, most of my economic analysis towards Brexit has been negative, but and this can be theoretically partially offset by trade deals with the US as well as other nations. Now, the EU decides what trade deals Britain can have, and Britain has no say in the matter until we leave, assumably today, unless something happens. And once we leave the EU, Britain can negotiate a free trade deal with the US and other nations, and to have less free trade, well, to have less trade barriers, so we can have much more free trade. It, Now, this is the end of the Brexit video. I would like to thank all who watched this to the very end. Hopefully you understand Brexit a lot more now, and as well as its economic effects. And I just want to say that I know this country is very divided right now on this particular issue. I just that if someone voted differently from you, they aren't a bad person, they aren't a racist, they aren't necessarily a Ramona, they just have a different point of view, just to get that out there. Also, I want you to rate this video, rate and comment this video, and I will be making future videos like this, and see you in another time. Bye.